Okay, folks, so clearly you've seen these two images placed side by side. One is the 2009 inauguration of Barack Obama, and the other is this past week's inauguration of Donald J. Trump. Clearly, one has far more than the other, and that's not such a big deal. In and of itself, nobody would be commenting on that. There are some that are larger, there are some that are smaller. Donald Trump is not necessarily the home team game here. 4% of Washington, D.C. voted for him. A lot of people wouldn't come. We would expect that. Here is the problem. The problem was Donald Trump's reaction to it.
I get up this morning, I turn on one of the networks, and they show an empty field. I said, wait a minute. I made a speech. I looked out. The field it looked like 1.5 million people. They showed a field where there were practically nobody standing there. And they said, Donald Trump did not draw well. I said, it was almost raining. We have something that's amazing because honestly, it looked like 1.5 million people, whatever it was. But it went all the way back to the Washington Monument. And I turn on the thing, and by mistake, I get this network. And it showed an empty field. And it said, we drew 250,000 people. Now, that's not bad, but it's a lie. We had 250,000 people literally around, in the little bowl that we constructed. That was 250,000 people. The rest of the, 20-block area all the way back to the Washington Monument was packed. So we caught them, and we caught them in a beauty, and I think they're going to pay a big price.
And this was followed up by Donald Trump's press secretary, Sean Spicer, the very first time he calls the press in to speak with him. The press secretary thinks CJ on the West Wing calls in the media for the very first time to give the first message from the president, the newly elected, newly sworn in president of the United States, and says this.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. Even the New York Times printed a photograph showing that a misrepresentation of the crowd in the original tweet in their paper, which showed the full extent of the support, depth, and crowd and intensity that existed.
So was this picture indeed fake news? Was this picture indeed just set up? Maybe it was taken at 9 o'clock in the morning. Maybe it was taken at 10 o'clock in the morning. Is this just put out as a fake news story by the media to embarrass the great man, Donald Trump? Turns out, no. And here's how we know that. And here's how we know Sean Spicer was lying is such a hard word, but it might be an appropriate word. For sure, not being honest. For sure, getting up there and using clearly falsifiable facts over something so petty as this. Well, so what's the actual numbers here? The Washington Mall Parks Authority does not actually take crowd estimates anymore. How we know the actual number comes from a couple different ways. One is the Washington, D.C. metro system. You weren't to drive into Washington, D.C. You would take the metro in. The metro released its numbers at precisely 11 a.m. on Inauguration Day. There had been 193,000 trips taken. How does that compare to Barack Obama in 2009? Well, precisely at 11 a.m. on January 20th, 2009, the Washington, D.C. Metro recorded that they had 513,000 riders. So in case you went to Trump University, 513,000 is significantly higher than 193,000. I'm sorry for that little dig right there, but I couldn't help it. So how is this explained? And this is where it starts getting really bad, folks. And this is where it starts really freaking me out. Kellyanne Conway goes on to meet the press and says this.
You did not answer the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts.
Alternative facts. You heard that right. Not facts, alternative facts. And this is the problem. This is why I'm harping on this. And this is why you have to be harping on this also. And this is why this president is dangerous. That's not an exaggeration. When you move away from facts, this is the same thing that we see going on the left. This is the same thing we see happening with Black Lives Matter. This is the same thing that we see happening with militant Islam. This is the same thing that we see happening here in Israel. When the facts stop becoming important, when you stop asking the question, well, what would a democratic state of Palestine look like? It would be beautiful. It would be a utopian paradise. Gaza would be Monte Carlo if Israel would just get out of the way. The facts don't pan out to that, folks. When we dispense with facts, that's when dictators can take over. So I don't care if Barack Obama had 2/3 as many people as you, Donald Trump. What gets me is the idea that he is too thin-skinned to be able to handle that. If you can't handle that, if you can't handle that you are less popular than your opponent, how are you going to handle real crises? And another thing here, for those of my colleagues that are out there saying, yeah, but you know what? He's going to be so good for Israel. He's going to be great for Israel. You just wait and see. You know, one of the best pieces of dating advice I ever heard from someone was when you go out with somebody, watch how they treat the waiter. Watch how they treat the people they don't have to be nice to. Sure, Donald Trump is kissing up to the Jews right now, but he is going to treat Israel precisely how he treats everybody else. That's why we have to hold his feet to the fire. The only thing in the Trump presidency so far that he has demonstrated without a doubt, beyond any shadow of a doubt, is his willingness to lie to save his ego and to promote his own narcissistic self-aggrandizement. This is my view from the hills of Judea, and I'm not giving up on this. You shouldn't either. Go ahead, leave a comment below if it's like any of the other comments of the anti-Trump stuff I have put out there. It will be mean and nasty and personal attacks, and that's okay. I'm thick-skinned enough to handle it. If you agree with this, though, you cannot sit idly by and let this happen. Share this video on your news feed. Get out, tweet about it, write about it. We're going to hold Donald Trump's feet to the fire for the next 4 years. Hopefully less. Let's not make it more.